A disastrous debut turns into a dramatic dub for DeShaun Foster and the UCLA Bruins against Hawaii. We'll talk about a crazy and probably unnecessary comeback win for our Bruins on tonight's edition of the first ever Locked On UCLA Postcast right now.
You are Locked On Bruins Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Los Angeles on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Fours up, everybody. Hello and welcome to the first ever Locked On UCLA Postcast here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel and after the fact wherever you get the Locked On UCLA podcast feed. If you don't know who I am Gavin Carlson. I spent the last 4 years as a credentialed UCLA journalist for the Daily Bruin. I am now a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and my, oh my, if you don't know what a postcast is, it's a post-game show directly after every single UCLA game, and wow, the first ever postcast, the first ever game as a Big Ten school, the first ever game as a head coach for DeShaun Foster, and we wasted no time getting Heartbreak City just being avoided. I mean, talk about a scary game the entire way, a disgracefully bad first half. Not only do you get shut out, not only does Ethan Garbers throw 2 first half interceptions, but the offensive line, abysmal. The running game, non-existent. And the defense, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good enough in the first half. And yet, despite being down 10-0, the Bruins come all the way back, 16 points in the second half to steal a 16-13 win right at the end. A game-winning field goal from Mateen Bagani. He had 3 field goals, including that one with less than a minute to go, to give the Bruins a 16-13 win. My, oh my. Shout out to everybody in here. Welcome to the first ever Locked On UCLA Postcast. And before we jump into this one, where we will talk about a terrible start, my criticisms for Eric Bieniemy, for DeShaun Foster, for Ethan Garbers, before we get into everything that led to that comeback, Eric Bieniemy completely turning things around, the offensive line, oh my, we'll get into all of it. But before we do, a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's postcast. It is Gametime. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. If you can't tell, I'm used to doing MLB postcasts, but use Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. Well, what time is it? It's time to talk about an unbelievable game. And like I was saying, I was hosting a live stream during this game, and what I was saying is the A story would have been that horrible first half, of course. But because there is a game-winning drive by Ethan Garbers, because there is a game-winning field goal with less than a minute to go, obviously, that is the A story. Ethan Garbers, not a great first half. Like we said, all sorts of issues. The offensive line was terrible. The play calling, we will get into it, was terrible. But Ethan Garbers, Eric Bieniemy led, come out with 3:02 left in this game, 1st and 10 at the UCLA 30, or at the UCLA 41. They immediately have a 5-yard penalty. So it's 1st and 15. Ethan Garbers drops back and throws an absolute laser. Garbers did not have a lot of time in the pocket this game, but when he did, for the most part, he was spectacular, and it certainly was the case here. On a 1st and 15, he throws a strike to Maliki Matavao for 20 yards. Immediately, you get into Hawaii territory. It's 1st and 10 at the 44. Then at the 44, the next play, a nice quick strike from Ethan Garbers to Bryce Pierre, the backup tight end. Something we didn't see at all in the first half was quick strikes. We saw one there to Bryce Pierre, and just like that, 1st and 15 becomes back-to-back 10-plus yard completions to tight ends. Love to see it. Then 2 minutes left, ball at the 33, and how about another completion? This one to Rico Flores on a drag route underneath. He's able to fight for that extra yard, get the first down. Things got a little dicey there. You know, you would have liked to see this team just punch it in, have a, emphatic, impressive final drive, score a touchdown, be up 7 with a minute to go. But like they did all last year and like they did all game in the second half until this drive, or including this drive, they stall out in the red zone. Once again, technically they're just outside when they start at the 23 on 1st and 10, but an incomplete pass, then an Ethan Garbers scramble on 2nd and 10. And then on 3rd and 5, another Ethan Garbers scramble. And I want to tell you something real quick. You won't read it on the box score. You might not even think it first glance watching this game. But Ethan Garbers makes one of the plays of the game on this 3rd and 5. Did he run for 5 and get the first down? No. But Hawaii had one timeout left. There's just over a minute to go. A lot of quarterbacks, especially a lot of college quarterbacks, especially a lot of quarterbacks who had a first half as bad as Ethan Garbers in this offense had, a lot of quarterbacks would have just ran out of bounds there. Maybe they would have tried to get the first down, not gotten it, run out of bounds, saves Hawaii a timeout, but not Ethan Garbers. It was a shaky game for him for the most part, but what a decision there to dive, stay in bounds, force Hawaii to use its last timeout, and on 4th and 1, Mateen Begani is able to convert his 3rd field goal of the game. We know all the field goal issues that our team has had in recent years, especially last year. But Mateen Begani, the Cal transfer, makes his 3rd kick of the day, this one from 32 yards, to give UCLA a 16-13 lead. Now, there's still 56 seconds to go, and it's still just a 3-point game. And boy, it doesn't take me to tell you that there's been times where UCLA has blown things like this. Remember UCLA Fresno State a couple years ago at the Rose Bowl, fresh off an LSU win? I think we all remember that, and knowing that this secondary can give up big chunk plays at the end of games. But the reason they didn't today was, of course, partially because of them and partially because of the pass rush. But it is because of that Garbers decision to get down. If Hawaii has one timeout, this drive maybe goes a lot differently. It was like 3rd and 20, and they completed an 18-yard pass. Any other situation there, they complete that pass, they call a timeout, they probably convert the 4th down on the next play, and there's like 30 seconds, and they're at midfield, and they can very easily tie this game. But not today, because Garbers goes down on a couple plays before, forces Hawaii to use its last timeout, and lets the defense just give up, give a lot of cushion. They did that all first half, much to my disliking, but in the second, give a lot of cushion, let the pass rush do its job. They force an incomplete on 1st down that probably could have been completed, but then Ali Kehoe, who, how good of a story is that to see him come through, gets a huge sack on 2nd and 10, 11-yard loss. They lose 34 seconds on the play because they have no timeouts. On 3rd and 21, they do complete one for 15, but then on 4th and 6, fumble, game over. Brian Addison recovers the fumble. Good for him. He had a great game. But at the end of the day, the moral of the story here is Ethan Garbers was not great in the first half. He did not get any help from his line. He did not get any help from his running game. He did not get any help from his offensive coordinator in Eric Bieniemy. But what he did do is he showed his resilience. And in that second half, while I would have loved to see some red zone conversions, and we'll talk about that later, while I would have loved to see this team win this game 28-13 like they should have at the beginning, before this game even started, when you're expected to, talk about the resilience multiple times to put together great drives, to show composure in the pocket when things are going crazy for Ethan Garbers, and then there on that last drive, would have loved a touchdown, but smart stuff from him. An old Ethan Garbers, even an Ethan Garbers in the first quarter of this game, certainly a Dante Moore last year, or a DTR early in his career. On this last drive, there's multiple plays where Garbers is evading rushers, and probably either of those guys I mentioned, whether it's Ethan Garbers last year or even earlier in this game, DTR, Dante Moore, anybody, Josh Rosen, I mean, you can keep talking. It's likely they're making a turnover there. Either they're not evading pressure and fumbling, they're throwing a risky ball, but Garbers knew when to get rid of it. He knew when to escape. He has sneaky athleticism at the quarterback position. We saw it with UCLA starting the game with the read option. And from that point on, Garbers showed you, I can move. And his ability to evade rushers on that last drive, and really the whole second half, helped overcome an offensive line that was absolutely terrible. Helped overcome a running game that was non-existent. And so Ethan Garbers deserves a lot of credit. And when we come back from our first break, we'll talk about the stats. We'll talk about the first half and why it went so wrong. I'll give my criticisms of Eric Bieniemy, but also tell you what Eric Bieniemy did to turn this thing around. And then, of course, we'll give credit to the defense. We'll give credit to the special teams, other than a first drive mistake, after our breaks here on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. Now, today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn. If you don't know, we do ad breaks here really quickly, and then we get right back to the show. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats. They might not have the time or resources to hire, but LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. And that's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Back here live on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. This is the Locked On UCLA Postcast, the first ever Locked On UCLA Postcast. If you don't know who I am, wearing my UCLA jersey today, I'm a proud UCLA alum that just graduated in June, class of 2024. Go Bruins. I spent the last 4 years covering UCLA as a member of the Daily Bruin, and I'm now a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. What a game. What an unbelievable game. Not the showing you wanted to see for 3/4 of this game, and let's talk about it. All right, this first half, now that we have all the gung-ho out there, woohoo, we won the game, this first half was one of the worst halves of football I've ever seen from a UCLA team. Now, mind you, I'm only 22, and I'm sure a lot of you are longer UCLA fans than I am. Even though I was born and raised a UCLA fan, even though I'm a son of a UCLA alum, I was born wearing blue and gold. I've been a Bruin fan for all 22 years of my life. I'm sure there's some of you that have been a Bruin fan for longer, and you have seen worse halves, but I don't think I have. And I was in the Rose Bowl press box last year when UCLA lost to an Arizona State team with second and third string quarterbacks with Chip Kelly, or when they got blown out by Cal in the last game of the year last year. I have seen bad UCLA performances, but what we saw in this first half was about as bad as it gets. The offensive line, I have never seen so many free pass rushers on passes or tacklers on runs in my life. We did have an injury. Garrett DiGiorgio, the normal starting right tackle, did not play this game. But one injury and then one during the game is not enough of an excuse for this awful offensive performance. This team was getting thrown around, and I was shocked by the play calling from Eric Bieniemy on the first couple of drives, regardless of the state of the offensive line. I thought there was way too many passes overall. This is a head coach in DeShaun Foster that's a running back. I was expecting a run-heavy offense, but instead, a ton of passes, also a ton of long passes. Long, and not just in terms of distance. I'm talking developing. This offensive line could not give Garbers more than 3 seconds, and yet Eric Bieniemy religiously, every play, was calling long, developing, deep routes. I mean, no better example than with less than 30 seconds in the first half, in what has already been an abysmal first half. And Eric Bieniemy calls a long, developing pass play inside your own 10. Surely enough, with the combination of guys not getting open, because one thing, and I was giving Eric Bieniemy credit on my Twitter and on my live stream that I was doing, I was impressed with the pre-snap stuff. A lot of cool, unique formations. I loved they came out one time in I formation with TJ Harden at fullback, Keegan Jones at running back. Then they split Keegan Jones as a wide receiver, turn it into a shotgun play. I loved that. I loved seeing single back. You know, an NFL style offense with just a single back formation. It gives you a lot of versatility. You can run left, you can run right, you can go play action, you can go quick 3-step drop, quick slant. You can do so much. The problem is in the first half, it felt like UCLA was only doing one thing. Drop back, 5-step, 7-step drops, deep, long developing routes. Meanwhile, the offensive line wasn't giving Garbers enough time and giving those receivers enough time to get open, and those receivers also weren't getting open enough. And it was a complete opposite of what we were seeing from the Hawaii offense in terms of quick hitting passes. This Hawaii team, the skill players, are not more talented than UCLA's defenders. And Hawaii knew that. And it helped that UCLA, we'll get into the defense later, but UCLA was giving all sorts of cushion. And Hawaii was able to just snap the ball, look left, throw it 5 yards, boom. Snap the ball, look right, throw it 10 yards, boom. Occasional run, occasional QB scramble. But for the most part, it was just catch, lick, throw, 10 yards, first down. Well-churned offense, well-oiled machine. UCLA could have been any more different in the first half. Play action, that's not fooling anyone because the run isn't working. Wait. Try to throw the ball deep, for the most part, not open. Play action. Garbers looks. He's immediately under pressure. He's got to throw it away. The only drive where UCLA did anything in the first half was thanks to a roughing the passer penalty, a couple penalties. Hawaii was terrible. Hawaii played a really bad game and was leading 10-0 at half. If that doesn't tell you how bad UCLA was, I don't know what was. Hawaii had over 10 penalties for over 100 yards. They had 2 unnecessary roughness penalties in the first half. They had DPIs. They had delay of games. And yet UCLA didn't score a point in the first half because their only drive, which was boosted by penalties, resulted in a Garbers pick in the end zone. Other than that, like I was saying, the run game was non-existent. The line was terrible. And then, like we were talking about, and I'm all over the place because I am amped up. I'm not going to lie. I'm amped up. That Garbers pick. No better example of a horrible everything than that Garbers pick. First and foremost, horrible play call. Why are you calling a risky pass inside your own 10? 2, why are you doing that when your offensive line can't block anybody? 3, when your offensive line doesn't block anybody and Garbers is under pressure, why does he just sit in the pocket? We saw it in the second half, his ability to move around. He sits in the pocket. And then 4, and number 4 is probably maybe too critical. Why is Garbers throwing that ball the way he did? Now, I'm not going to get on him for throwing it away. He's about to get sacked in the end zone, but he threw it up and it got picked. Would have just loved to see him spike it on the ground. At the end of the day, it summed up everything for the first half perfectly. And it was right after the defense got an interception that they really didn't even earn. It was a bad throw. It was a tip ball that resulted in a great interception by Henderson, I believe. But you give it right back with the pick. And it could have been 7-0, which still would have been disgraceful. At the end of the day, 10-0 at the half because of that Garbers pick. And a really, really, really disgraceful, disappointing first half. I mean, some of these numbers, unbelievable. UCLA won this game. They won this game despite having 20 rushes for 71 yards. Hawaii was somehow way worse. 51 yards on 28 carries. A 1.8 yards per rush. Now, of course, the sacks take stuff away from that in college. But at the end of the day, UCLA's run game, which has been a strength throughout the entire Chip Kelly era, and you thought would stay the same with a former legendary running back as the head coach, it was terrible. And it was not TJ Harden's fault. It was not Keegan Jones's fault. I thought Keegan Jones looked great in the few times he touched the ball. At the end of the day, the offensive line will get destroyed by every Big Ten team. Every. Not just Penn State. Not just Washington. Not just Oregon. That offensive line we saw today will get destroyed by Rutgers and Nebraska and Minnesota and Iowa and even Indiana. It will. That offensive line was getting destroyed by Hawaii. Okay, so that is the number one red flag of this game, and it's the number one reason Garbers didn't look good in the first half. It's obviously the number one reason the running game wasn't working, and it's the number one reason that Eric Bieniemy's too heavy pro style play calling wasn't working. Now, I was clamoring at halftime for Bieniemy to change it up, and he listened. He listened to me. He was looking at my Twitter. I said, let's see some quick throws in the flat. Let's see some quick screens. Let's see some jet sweeps. Let's see some quick slants. And what happens in the second half? Right away, first drive, inside the 10 again, thanks to a good punt by Hawaii. Play action, quick throw to Harden in the flat. It only picked up 2 yards, but I was thrilled because A, we weren't getting 2 yards on first down all first half, and B, Bieniemy immediately shows, I'm going to adjust. I'm going to get quick, easy throws. He throws it in the flat to TJ Harden. Next play, quick wide receiver screen to J.Michael Sturdivant for first down. Boom. This team is more talented than theirs. We don't need to run these long pass concepts with deep posts and all this stuff. Get the ball to TJ Harden quickly. Get it to J-Mike quickly for a wide receiver screen. Then there's a play action where Garbers rolls out. The offensive line isn't protecting well in standard drops. So perfect. Run a play action where you roll out and Garbers is able to scramble for a few. Then there's another scramble where he finds Rico Flores, and this is one of the many examples of Rico Flores, A, having a big game, but 2, Garbers, when he did escape, it created things. This team in basic hike, look, wait thing, they weren't creating space. But when Garbers was able to extend plays, there's talent on the outside that's able to get open. Garbers creates time, finds Rico Flores for a big play, okay? And then eventually, UCLA is able to put some points on the board in multiple drives, okay? It started with these quick throws. One of the plays of the game, of course, the deep post from Ethan Garbers to Rico Flores on that drive. Not only did Garbers have the short pass to Rico Flores that turned into a big play, but then there's a PI, and then there's a deep bomb to Rico Flores for a touchdown. It was beautiful. 39 yards on a deep post. And just like that, the UCLA is within 6. From there, 2 straight drives where they get in the red zone, 2 straight drives where they're forced to have field goals. And that will be one thing we want to look at throughout this entire year. Last year, the second worst team in the country in terms of red zone conversion rate. And we had 3 red zone opportunities in the first 3 quarters. The first one an interception, the second and third field goals. Not good enough. And technically that last drive as well, a field goal, although albeit you're playing for the field goal there. But at the end of the day, this team did not score a touchdown in the red zone. Their only touchdown was that huge 39-yarder to Rico Flores. When we come back, we'll talk about the defense. I'll also give you my standout players of the game, and then we will take a deep breath and enjoy the 1-0 record that we probably don't deserve if we played a lot better of a team. So we'll talk about it after our last break here on the Locked On UCLA Postcast. Now, finally, today's show is once again brought to you by Gametime. If you don't know what Gametime is, it's an authorized ticket marketplace that makes buying and selling tickets easier than ever. And it has this new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And they have great deals. Like, for example, Labor Day coming up, you can get a Dodgers Diamondbacks ticket for 50% off. Stuff like that with Gametime Picks. It's amazing. I've used Gametime. My fun story is earlier in the summer, after I graduated from UCLA, go Bruins, I took a trip to New York. And in the span of like 6 days, I went to a New York Liberty game where I bought my tickets on the subway there. And then I went to a New York Yankees game where I bought my tickets on the subway there. And I did it with the Gametime app. Because I waited, the prices actually go down the closer you get to kickoff, to first pitch, to first tip. And so take advantage of that and take advantage of other great features of Gametime. I love the all-in pricing where it tells you the actual ticket price with all the fees up front. No surprise fees at checkout. You do have to turn this feature on, but when you do, it's amazing. It also gives you a view from your seat. That is great. There's Gametime ticket coverage, the lowest price guarantee, and so much more. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB, I keep saying MLB. Clearly, I'm used to doing the Angels show. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Back here live on Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel. This is the Locked On UCLA Postcast, the first ever Locked On UCLA Postcast, and it came after the first ever DeShaun Foster head coaching game, the first ever UCLA game as a member of the Big Ten, and yet despite all the milestones being set in this one, it's a game you want to forget. UCLA survived 16-13 against Hawaii. They were 14-point favorites against a Hawaii team that already isn't great, but also underperformed in their season opener. And yet UCLA looked like they were outmatched in the entire first half and really throughout most of this game. They dominated Hawaii in the second half. But like I said, because of 2 nice drives in the red zone being held to field goals and because of a 10-0 deficit, all of that domination in the second half still meant a 13-13 game going late into this game. Luckily for DeShaun Foster and for Bruin Nation, we survived. We have to talk about the defense a little bit because we know all the questions about this defense coming into the year. Not only is D'Anton Lynn gone, not only is our stud first-round pick Liatu Latu gone, not only are the Murphy twins gone, not only did Kamari Ramsey transfer, not only did John Humphrey transfer, there's a lot of question marks, right? But at the end of the day, the guys you wanted to see come through for the defense did. Arguably my number one player, I think, is maybe properly rated by the UCLA community, but underrated overall, Kane Medrano. I think he's unbelievable, and he was great today. A couple huge tackles. He had a sack in a big moment, was flying all over the place. He had a couple TFLs overall, He was really impressive. 5 total tackles, 5 solos. He did have the TFL. He didn't have a sack, but a TFL, 5 total tackles for him. He was great. Jay Toya might not show up on the stats because at the end of the day, he is a D tackle. He did have half a sack, but he was all over the place throughout this game. And then the secondary. We have to talk about Ali Kehoe also as well. He had a pass deflection and a sack, a great sack from Ali Kehoe after everything he's been through. But the secondary was really, really good at times. KJ Wallace was great. 7 total tackles, 6 solo tackles, a sack, 2 TFLs, and a pass deflection. He was great. We saw the interceptions in this one. We loved to see Ramon Henderson get that amazing pick and DJ Justice with a nice interception as well. Neither of them were really amazing coverage. They're more poor throws or tip balls and whatnot, but still, the secondary looked good. Here are my negatives. Not really the personnel-wise. I don't think there was any missed tackles. I thought Brian Addison had a great game in his UCLA debut. I thought Jacob Busick was really impressive. He was getting a lot of pressure. None of my complaints are with the personnel for the defense. My complaints are with the play calling. First half, way too much cushion. This Hawaii team did not show any willingness, any desire to throw the ball deep, but they didn't have to. Because in the first half, UCLA was either playing zone coverage and letting the quarterback snap, look, run a stick concept, have 3 guys find a zone, look one way, fire right away, or look one way, then look the other, fire, boom, into the zone coverage, easy completions. That's 1. 2, if you ran man-to-man, they ran it with 10 yards of cushion, so same thing. The quarterback doesn't have to think. Snap, look. If it's zone, throw it right away. If it's man, wait 2 seconds for the guy to break, and he's wide open, right? Don't think the play calling made a lot of sense. And the only time this team couldn't get pressure, not because the D-line wasn't great or anything, it's because they didn't have any time to get pressure. The quarterback could throw the ball right away. Guys were wide open because of the cushion. Whenever this team started to press up, started to make Hawaii wide receivers beat them down the field, or even just break a press, they didn't do it right away. And then the D-line was getting in there. And then the quarterback was running for his life. The first half and second half, night and day for this entire UCLA team, but especially for the Hawaii quarterback. In the first half, quick throws. Second half, he's running for his life. Another thing I didn't like, we blitzed every third down in the first half, and even in the third quarter. Blitzed every third down, and sometimes it worked, but same thing. Sometimes it gave Hawaii a cop-out. They could just snap it and immediately throw the ball, and someone was going to be open. But when they adjusted, when they started actually disguising things, showing 5-man pressure, but only actually blitzing 3. Showing 3-man pressure, but actually blitzing 5. Actually pressing up and challenging the receivers. Things got really difficult for Hawaii, and that's why they only scored 3 points in the second half. UCLA's secondary is good enough to challenge teams, especially teams like Hawaii. But it's the Big Ten. It's not the Pac-12 anymore. We're so used to even the bad Pac-12 teams being, the Washington States of the world that are still going to air it out. Right? The Arizonas of the world that are going to air it out. Even the Arizona States sometimes. Now the bad teams of the Big Ten are teams like Iowa and Minnesota that are not going to throw the ball at all. So be confident in your talent on the outside. I think Devin Kirkwood still has an elite ceiling. Certainly the floor is low sometimes. Certainly he hasn't reached his potential all the way. But Devin Kirkwood can still be elite. I think Jalen Davies can be elite. We saw KJ Wallace look absolutely elite. We saw Brian Addison, for the most part, look elite. We saw Ramon Henderson have a pick in a great game, right? I think this secondary can be aggressive. Press up on guys. I still think the front 7 is good enough where you don't need a ton of defensive back support in order to stop the run. I don't think you need a ton of blitzes to generate pressure. Sure, more than last year, because last year Latu would beat one-on-one blocking every single snap. But still, I don't think you need to blitz crazy. I think the front 7 can do their job in the run game, can generate pressure passing-wise enough, and let the corners press up, let them have safety help over the top, and I think it's a pretty physical secondary in terms of attributes, but also in terms of just the frames. Devin Kirkwood is a big guy for a corner. Brian Addison is huge for a safety. These are big guys that can be physical. So get up in guys' faces, press them, be aggressive, and make teams beat you. In the first half, you didn't make Hawaii beat you. You gave them 8-yard passes every play. Second half, you made them beat you, and they couldn't do it. And then it gives that great D-line. I mean, maybe not as great, but still, Keanu Williams, Jay Toya, those are still elite guys. Gave them a chance to still get in there, right? It gave an opportunity for a guy like Cam Medrano to occasionally blitz, for Olawemfe Oladejo to occasionally run around and make plays. The linebacking core is still great. The D-line is still solid. Let the corners be aggressive, and the front 7 will benefit. That's my take on the defense. Offensively, you already heard me say it a million times. Going into the next game against Indiana, simplify things. Hopefully by that, between now and then, thank goodness we have this Saturday upcoming off, because this offensive line needs a lot of time. But even if whether the offensive line is extremely improved or only slightly improved compared to today, either way, simplify things for Ethan Garbers, short throws, quick throws. The run game has to be better than it was today, and you'll be able to play off that as well, okay? At the end of the day, a win is a win. It's an underwhelming performance, but it could have been a lot worse if you lost this game. We would have been the laughingstock of the country if we lost this game. We're still probably going to be the laughingstock of the Big Ten, let's be honest. Unless, like, USC gets killed by LSU tomorrow, which I would love, and we all would. But for the most part, we are going to be the laughingstock of the Big Ten after week 1. And we already come into this year with extremely low expectations. But just be grateful that we won the game. At the end of the day, we won the game. We were never going to expect things to be perfect in DeShaun Foster's coaching debut, in Eric Bieniemy's debut as the UCLA offensive coordinator, in Malo's debut as the defensive coordinator. So, an atrocious, infuriating first half. But I thought the second half was actually better than the score would suggest. You outscored them 16-3, but you really should have outscored them like 24-3. And so that's why I'm not going to lose my mind over this performance. Thank goodness you won the game, and let's improve from here. This team is still, in my opinion, should go into that home debut against Indiana and expect to win. This is still a team that should expect to beat Minnesota, should expect to compete against the Rutgers of the world, against the Iowas of the world. Do I look at this game and go, we're going to compete against Penn State? Heck no. But we didn't think that coming in. All right, let's go handle business against Indiana and show the Big Ten that we might not win 10 games this year, but we're not going to win 4 like people are saying. Let's go win 7 games. Let's go win 6 games, okay? And I think this will be a wake-up call for everybody in the coaching staff and for some players. I mean, talk about wake-up call. One thing I will say, the player of the game, that's what I was going to get to, Rico Flores, in my opinion, needs to play of the game. I think if Ethan Garbers didn't have such an awful first half, I really would have given it to him based on how impressive I thought he was in the second half, because he was near perfect in the second half, other than not converting a couple red zone touchdowns. But the player of the game is Rico Flores. He only has 3 catches, but 102 yards. He had a 53-yarder. He had a 39-yard touchdown. He had a huge game, 3 for 102 and a touchdown. One guy that I was really surprised to see do what he did was Logan Loya. And there was a lot being made up about his omission from the starting spot in the first depth chart that was released. And I'll be completely honest. Coming into this game, I was saying people are worrying way too much about a depth chart. Logan Loya is not an outside receiver, but anytime there is a third receiver in the slot, or anytime that maybe there's 2 receivers, but it's a tight formation, Logan Loya will be the number 2 choice to J.Michael. That's what I was certain of, based on everything we saw last year and the skill set that he possesses. He is only a slot guy, but he's an elite slot guy. But boy, the people who were looking at that depth chart closely were right. And although I do think I'm right most of the time about UCLA, I've covered this team for 4 years, and I'm confident. I've spoken to a lot of these guys that are on the field right now. I was wrong about this one. And at the end of the day, the moral of the story is Logan Loya might be a above average slot player, but he is only a slot receiver. Like I said on my live stream, and I keep saying my live stream, if you don't know, I have a brand new YouTube channel. Just look up GAV. I hosted a live watch along during the entire game. I'll be posting all sorts of content there throughout the season, so go check that out. There's a little plug. But what I was saying is, okay, what my conclusion is, Titus, TMA, he's probably a little bit worse of a slot receiver than Logan Loya, but he is a light years better outside receiver, right? We all know that. Logan Loya is a small guy that's only going to give you quick slants and drag routes. If Titus can run a quick slant and a drag route while also giving you some stuff in the intermediate game, 15 yards down the field, he's taken Logan Loya's spot. And then, of course, J.Michael and Rico Flores are both tall yet fast, athletic, physical receivers. J.Michael Sturdivant is still a little bit undersized. I'm such a huge fan of J.Mike and his skill set, but he's still a little undersized, and he still doesn't give you a ton of confidence on jump balls. But Rico Flores is that. So between Rico Flores being the jump ball, deep ball threat, the kind of Jamar Chase build, whereas J.Michael Sturdivant might be a little bit more of a, let's see if I can think of one real quick. I'm not going to say like a Justin Jefferson type of build, but like kind of that idea of a super fast and skillful but thinner wide receiver. So kind of like, yeah, Justin Jefferson, Rico Flores being a Jamar Chase. Obviously, these are the best receivers in the world, and Rico Flores and J.Michael Sturdivant are not. But you get what I'm saying. Rico Flores, the Jamar Chase type of player. J.Michael Sturdivant, the Justin Jefferson type of player. Logan Loya is like, Julian Edelman, right? He's like Percy Harvin. And at the end of the day, if Titus can be kind of a Michael Thomas, where he is a slot guy mainly, but also just a bigger body, you'll take that, right? That's my take on the receiving core. Nothing to talk about in the backfield. It was an awful game for TJ Harden and Keegan Jones, but it wasn't their fault. The offensive line was terrible. TJ is the starter. Keegan Jones is the backup. That's all you need to know. That's a great call. Bruce says Devontae Smith. That's a great call for that NFL player comp. But with all that being said, Rico Flores, player of the game. Interesting thing being the wide receiving core. Also didn't see a lot of Jalen Davies, which was surprising to me. I still think he's the second best corner on this team, but maybe not. So those are a couple interesting things to see. The offensive line is going to look a lot different in next game and hopefully a lot better. We know the quarterback is set. Now we know that the receiving core is set. It's set with those three guys and Logan Loya being the 4. Tight end room is set. Running back room is set. The D-line, the linebackers, the safeties all set. And now corners, I think we know what we want to expect from that as well. But with all that being said, the first ever Locked On UCLA Postcast with me, Gavin Carlson, former credentialed journalist covering this team with the Daily Bruin and now a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Go Bruins. It was a terrible first half, a decent second half. You survive. You avoid an embarrassing loss. It's still an embarrassing win, but hey, you're 1-0. And for a team that has low expectations, you'll take it. With all that being said, have a great rest of your Saturday night. Have a great weekend. Go, please, follow me on Twitter, at Gavin Carlson _ on Twitter. I talk about UCLA 24/7. And also, please go check out my brand new UCLA Sports YouTube channel. It's GAV. You can look up at Gavin Carlson at Gavin Carlson _ on YouTube, but also you can just look up GAV. I'll have a watch along live during every single game. There's going to be midweek videos as well, so please check that out as well. But with all that being said, I'm Gavin Carlson. Bruins win 16-13 in the Big Ten debut, in the DeShaun Foster debut. Go Bruins, and let's get an 8 clap, just like Zach does on the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm going to do it on the postcast. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA. UCLA, fight. Bruins win 16-13. Let's go, and let's keep it going in the next game. Go Bruins, 4's up, 8 clap. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.